This podcast is brought to you by the Senior Techie, a source of information for seniors and others about technology. Hello, everyone, and welcome back.
Hello.
Today, we are looking at something that I think it sits right at the top of the worry list for most of us over 55.
Oh, absolutely.
We worry about our knees, sure, and maybe our cholesterol.
Yeah.
But the big one, the silent one, is, the brain.
It's the control center, and it's the one thing we feel like we can't really fix once it starts to slip.
Exactly. I think most of us operate on this old assumption, and tell me if I'm wrong here, that the brain is basically a car engine.
Right.
You get it brand new, you drive it hard for 60 or 70 years, and eventually, well, the pistons wear out, the gaskets blow, and the whole thing just gets rusty and slow. And
Sure.
that's just inevitable.
That is the wear and tear model. It's
Yeah.
incredibly pervasive. It's also, according to the research we're looking at today from the Senior Techie, fundamentally outdated.
So it's not an engine,
No. A much better analogy is a muscle.
a muscle.
Think about it. If you put your arm in a cast for 6 weeks, the muscle withers. It atrophies. But if you go to the gym and lift weights, the muscle fibers actually tear and rebuild stronger. The brain operates on a very similar use it or lose it principle.
Okay, use it or lose it sounds a bit like a bumper sticker. I want to know if that's actually, scientifically true for someone who is, say, 75. Can you actually build muscle in the brain at that age?
You absolutely can. And that brings us to the core concept for today. It's a term called cognitive reserve.
Cognitive reserve. The Senior Techie describes this as a savings account for your brain, which I thought was a really helpful metaphor.
That's the perfect way to visualize it. Imagine that every time you challenge your brain, and I mean really challenge it, not just passive activity, you're making a deposit.
A deposit.
You're building denser neural connections. You are physically building infrastructure in your brain.
What's the point of that savings account? Is it just so I can win at Trivial Pursuit?
No, it's for security. It's a buffer against pathology. Biology is eventually going to try to make withdrawals.
Withdrawals like?
That could be natural aging, or it could be the onset of a disease like Alzheimer's. But the fascinating thing about cognitive reserve is that two people can have the exact same physical damage in their brains.
The same plaques and tangles.
The exact same. But the person with the high savings account, the high reserve, might show 0 symptoms.
Wait, hold on. So the damage is there, but they're functioning normally.
Exactly. Because they have enough extra neural circuitry to reroute the signals around the damage, they're still operating because they have that reserve.
That is wild. It's like having a detour route already planned out before the main road closes.
Precisely. And our goal today is to figure out how to make those deposits. Because the Senior Techie makes a very important distinction. Not everything we think is brain exercise actually counts.
Right, and we're going to get to that list of do's and don'ts. But first, I want to dig into the numbers, because the Senior Techie highlights a statistic that, honestly, it made me stop and reread the page.
The 6-year mental advantage.
Yes, that one. What is that?
This comes from comparative studies. Researchers looked at seniors around age 70 who regularly engaged in high-effort learning activities. They compared them to 65-year-olds who were largely inactive.
So a 5-year chronological age gap there.
Right, but functionally. The active 70-year-olds performed at the same level as the inactive 65-year-olds. They essentially bought themselves time.
So even though the calendar says 70, their brain is performing like it's 64, 65.
Exactly. And the mechanism that allows this is neuroplasticity. We used to think the brain was fixed after childhood. We now know that when you learn something new, you are physically altering its structure, forging new pathways.
Okay, forging pathways sounds great, but let's get specific. The Senior Techie points to a study from McGill University that I found really interesting because it wasn't just about feeling sharper. They measured actual chemistry.
Yes, this study is crucial because it moves beyond subjective feelings. They took adults over 65 and had them use a specific speed-based brain training program. But here's the key. They didn't do it all day.
How long?
Just 30 minutes a day.
That's manageable. That's a sitcom episode.
Highly manageable. And they did this for 10 weeks. At the end, the researchers measured a significant increase in what's called cholinergic activity.
Okay, I'm going to need you to unpack cholinergic activity for us non-neuroscientists.
Sure. It refers to the system in your brain that uses a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. Think of acetylcholine as the courier that delivers messages related to attention, memory, and learning.
Okay.
If the courier is tired or slow, you get brain fog, you walk into a room and forget why you're there.
I think my career takes a lot of long lunches.
We've all been there. But what the McGill study showed is that this 30-minute intervention actually ramped up that system. It made the careers faster and more efficient. The senior techie notes this was the first time a behavioral intervention, just acting differently, was shown to have this specific chemical effect in humans.
So we can literally alter our brain chemistry without medication, just by how we use it.
Correct. But, and this is a massive but, it depends entirely on how you use it.
Which brings us to what you call the comfort zone trap. Because I feel like a lot of us think we're exercising our brains, but this senior techie suggests we might just be spinning our wheels.
This is the most common pitfall. We tend to confuse activity with exercise.
Okay, give me an example. Because I do the daily crossword puzzle. I'm pretty religious about it. Does that count?
Well, it depends. When you do the Monday or Tuesday puzzle, do you struggle? Or do you kind of breeze through it while you're drinking your coffee?
Monday is a breeze. It makes me feel smart.
Then it doesn't count.
Ouch.
Why not? Because that feeling of ease means you're accessing long-term memory. You are retrieving words you already know. You aren't building new connections. You're just driving down the old paved roads you built 40 years ago.
So if I'm not sweating, mentally sweating, I'm not building muscle.
Exactly. The mechanism we need to engage is working memory.
The brain's scratch pad.
Yes. It's the ability to hold multiple pieces of conflicting information in your head at the same time, manipulate them, and make a decision.
What does that look like in practice?
It looks like doing the Friday crossword, where you have to hypothesize, okay, 3 across implies this, but that conflicts with 4 down, so maybe 3 across is actually a pun. That mental juggling act, that tension, that is the deposit.
So the frustration is actually the point.
The frustration is the medicine. If you aren't frustrated, you aren't learning. The senior techie is very clear on this. Regular players of puzzles like Sudoku or crosswords do show larger brain volumes in areas vulnerable to Alzheimer's, but only if they consistently push the difficulty level.
Okay, so I need to embrace the struggle. Now, the senior techie also moves on to games, and they specifically highlight strategic games like bridge and chess. My grandmother played bridge for decades, and I always thought it was just an excuse to gossip with her friends.
The social part is huge, which we'll get to, but bridge is actually a cognitive beast. It's one of the best workouts you can give your brain.
Why bridge specifically? Is it harder than poker or something?
It's different. The cognitive load in bridge is incredibly high because you are doing 4 or 5 things simultaneously. First, you have to track the bidding, which is a coded language between you and your partner.
Right.
Then you have to remember exactly which cards have been played by 3 other people.
That's a memory test right there.
Then you have to calculate the probability of where the remaining cards are. And on top of all that, you have to read the behavioral cues of your opponents. You are engaging memory, probability, strategy, and social analysis all at once.
Wow. That sounds like a full-time job.
It engages what we call executive functions. These are the CEO functions of the brain planning, inhibition, mental flexibility. The senior techie points out that these are the exact functions that tend to decline first with age. Bridge forces them to stay active.
So if you're looking for a hobby, maybe skip the solitaire and join a bridge club.
Absolutely. Solitaire is solitary and often repetitive. Bridge is dynamic and social.
Let's pivot to something else that the senior techie mentions. Lifelong learning. And I don't mean going back for a PhD, though I guess you could.
You certainly could. But the senior techie emphasizes that education shouldn't stop at graduation. The data shows that later life learning, taking a class, learning a trade, is associated with that same 6-year functional advantage we talked about earlier.
But does it matter what we learn? Can I just read more books about the Civil War if I'm already a history buff?
That's better than nothing, but the secret sauce here is novelty. The brain loves efficiency. It wants to run on autopilot. If you study something you already know well, you're on autopilot.
So I need to do something that makes me feel like a complete beginner again.
Exactly. Novelty forces the brain to build entirely new infrastructure. The senior techie suggests things like learning a new language at 68 or picking up coding.
Coding? Really?
Why not? It's a language. It's logic. It's entirely new syntax. It's a fantastic challenge.
That's true. I also like the section on creative arts. I think people view art as a soft skill, not really a brain skill.
That is a huge misconception. The senior techie breaks down what happens when you learn a musical instrument, for example. It is arguably a full-body workout for the brain.
Walk us through that. What's actually firing in there?
Everything. You have the motor cortex controlling fine finger movements. You have the visual cortex decoding musical notation, which again is a foreign language. You have the auditory cortex processing pitch and rhythm in real time. And you have the limbic system processing emotion.
And they all have to coordinate perfectly.
Down to the millisecond. It requires massive connectivity between the left and right hemispheres. It's incredible.
And visual arts, like painting or pottery.
It's problem solving in disguise. When you're painting, you aren't just being creative. You're analyzing, how do I mix this specific shade of blue? That's chemistry and ratio. How do I show depth here? That's spatial reasoning and geometry.
So you're doing math and physics, you just don't realize it.
Correct. And because it's enjoyable, you stick with it.
Now, we are talking about the senior techie, so we have to talk about technology. I feel like I'm constantly bombarded with ads for brain training apps. You know, the ones, play this game for 10 minutes a day and unlock your genius.
Right.
Is there any truth to that, or is it just marketing?
It's a mix, but the senior techie advises caution. There's a well-known issue in the scientific literature called the transfer problem.
The transfer problem, what is that?
It refers to the fact that getting good at a specific game doesn't necessarily make you better at anything else. If you play a memory game on your phone where you tap matching tiles, you will get very, very good at tapping matching tiles.
But that doesn't mean I'll remember where I parked the car.
Exactly. The skill often doesn't transfer to real life. The senior techie cites studies suggesting only about 10 to 20% of users see improvements that extend beyond the app itself.
So are they a waste of time?
Not necessarily. They are better than staring at a wall, but don't rely on them as your only source of exercise. The senior techie suggests using what they call good tech.
Define good tech.
Tech, that is a tool to learn a real-world skill. For example, using Duolingo to learn Spanish. You aren't just playing a game, you are learning a linguistic system that you can use to talk to a waiter or read a menu. That has real-world application.
Or using YouTube to learn how to fix a leaky faucet.
Exactly. You're using the tech to facilitate learning, not just to amuse yourself. And we shouldn't overlook the social aspect of tech.
Right, because isolation is a brain killer.
It is. Loneliness is toxic for cognitive health. So if you are using Zoom to host a book club or FaceTime to read a story to your grandkids or playing online chess with a friend in another state, that is high-value screen time.
Because it involves human connection.
And conversation. Conversation is unpredictable. It requires you to listen, process, and respond. That's a workout in itself.
Okay, so we have the what hard puzzles, complex games like bridge, learning new skills, and using tech as a tool. Now I want to talk about the how, because I can hear a listener saying, I'm 75, I'm tired, I don't have the energy to learn the cello.
And that is completely valid. The goal isn't to exhaust yourself. The senior techie advises consistency over intensity.
What's the prescription then?
About 20 minutes a day.
That's it.
That is enough to see benefits, provided the activity is challenging. And you don't have to do the same thing every day. In fact, you probably shouldn't.
Like cross-training for your brain.
Exactly. Monday might be a logic puzzle. Tuesday, listen to a dense educational podcast. Wednesday, work on your watercolor painting. The variety keeps the brain from getting too comfortable.
I really like the advice the senior techie gives about replacing rather than adding, because we all have habits we could swap out.
The easiest target is passive TV watching. If you spend 3 hours a night watching reruns, try swapping just 30 minutes of that for something active. Read a chapter of a book that challenges you. Or listen to an audiobook while you do the dishes.
You're turning dead time into a deposit into that savings account.
Precisely.
Now, I want to circle back to the why. We talked about the savings account. But practically speaking, what does all this effort buy us? Are we actually delaying Alzheimer's, or are we just hoping?
We have to be careful with our language. We cannot currently promise prevention. Genetics and biology play huge roles. But we can talk about delay. The senior techie provides a statistic that I find incredibly hopeful.
Lay it on us.
In studies of dementia patients, those who had a history of regular cognitive engagement, things like crosswords, reading, social clubs, they delayed the onset of accelerated memory decline by approximately 2.5 years.
2.5 years. You know, when you say it quickly, it doesn't sound like a lot. But when you think about it, that's 2 or 3 more Christmases. That's seeing a grandchild graduate. That's a lot of life.
It is a massive amount of quality life. And that brings us back to that backup generator metaphor. Even if the disease pathology is present, if you have built that cognitive reserve, your brain's backup systems kick in. You stay independent longer. You stay you for longer.
That is really the core message here, isn't it? It's about agency.
It shifts the narrative completely. It means we aren't just helpless passengers on the decline. The brain you have at 80 is, in part, a reflection of the choices you make at 60 and 70.
That is empowering. It means that every time I choose to do something hard instead of something easy, I'm investing in my future self.
You are, absolutely.
So the Senior Techie has a call to action for us, they say. Start now.
Don't wait for a diagnosis, do it today.
So here is our challenge to you, the listener. Pick one new thing this week. Just one.
Something that scares you a little bit.
Yes, find your good trouble. Maybe it's buying a puzzle book that looks too hard. Maybe it's downloading a language app. Maybe it's checking out the local community college schedule.
Or just taking a different route to the grocery store and turning off the GPS. Force your brain to map it out.
That's a great one. Simple changes. Just remember the rule. If it's easy, it probably doesn't count.
Embrace the frustration. That's your brain growing.
20 minutes a day to a stronger brain. I think that's a deal worth taking.
It's the best investment you can make.
This has been a really fascinating look at cognitive reserve. It's nice to know we have some power to shape our own aging process.
Absolutely. Keep the engine running, but don't be afraid to take it off-road.
I love that. Well, that brings us to the end of our discussion today. We hope you feel inspired to go out there and build some new neural pathways.
Get out of that comfort zone.
This podcast was brought to you by The Senior Techie. It's available on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. If you'd like to keep up with our newsletters, you can subscribe for free by going to theseniortechie.com. Thanks for listening.